is the Daily Break. This is the Daily Break. This is the Daily Break. This is the Daily Break.
My name is Nia Thompson, and I'm here to tell my story. I'm a registered nurse. I attended the Howard University in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you all know, but Washington, D.C., the cost of living is much higher than in Atlanta, Georgia. So naturally, being a college student, I struggled most of the way through nursing school. I had a lot of financial obligations during nursing school. We had to buy scrubs, we had to pay for clinicals, we had many different fees, and without my parents' help, I know that wouldn't be possible. So when I first started in DC, I immediately got a job because I've never been without an occupation. I started at Nordstrom. I worked at Nordstrom for maybe 3 semesters up until my last semester when I talked to my father and he said, you know, you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, which didn't really understand at the time, but now that I've graduated and I've elevated, I understand the concept. So during school, you know, there were nights where I was eating noodles or nights where I had to call my parents and ask them to order me a pizza, eating the same pizza for a week. One slice a day, one slice a meal. Go up to school, come back, eat a slice. So, you know, things like that I can relate to, like other college students, or, you know, not having a car my first couple of years of college. So navigating on foot up and down campus, the hilltop. So my father and mother bought me a Honda Accord, in which was the 2001. I graduated in 2017, so you can do the math, right? So, you know, the Honda Accord, I was happy to have a car, happy to have transportation, but at the same time, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but, you know, our generation, we keep up with the Joneses. Social media, you always see all this flashy, fancy. I went to Howard University. You know, everyone around me came from money or, you know, had a way of getting money. So it was like, every time I walk on the campus and I see somebody with the new Gucci bag or the new Louis Vuitton bag, it was like, wow, you know, I wish that I could have that. You know, I always wanted for more, but I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So I had to buckle down, get through nursing school, which was a challenge in itself because I had so many different obligations and obstacles I had to get through, so many exams to pass, and just so much pressure on me. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place. So I finally decided, I started missing shifts at work continuously. My manager tried to work with me, but one day I came in and he was just like, it's not working out. So naturally when you lose a job, that's almost as heartbreaking as losing, you know, a loved one. It's like, wow, so what am I going to do now? Where am I? Obviously I had a support system, but $100 a week in DC is like $1 a week. So I buckled down. I started to just study. I had a study group that I studied with, and we all would help each other out. If I was hungry, somebody would buy me food, and vice versa. You know, if I needed something, if I couldn't get to clinical, my car broke down, somebody would always look out for me, you know, things like that, you know, that was a humbling time in my life. And when you're in the midst of these things, you don't really understand what your future might look like, or how you're going to get to the future, or how you're going to eat your next meal even. But through being resilient and staying humble, I was able to graduate and obtain my degree in nursing, and now my life has changed for the better. Okay, so now I'm a registered nurse in one of the top nurse residency programs in the country. I moved back to Atlanta, and I'm working on getting my credit and my accounts and saving money together. So I decided to purchase a MacBook because I need to make sure I was keeping up with my classes in college. And all of my friends before I moved back home for the summer told me this is the way to go. So I went to the Apple store and they said, oh, you don't have to buy it outright, you can finance it. What does it mean to finance? Oh, well, you'll put this amount of money down and then you'll begin to make monthly payments. Perfect. Okay, I'll just go back to DC, find a job after I buy the MacBook, and I'll make my monthly payments. Okay, so fast forward, I buy the MacBook, I move back to DC, can't find a job. Or maybe I was just too lazy to try. So I start to get these phone calls. Oh, you missed a payment. Next month you missed another payment. You missed another payment. Still too scared to tell my parents because I hadn't informed them in the first place. I just decided this will go away. I'll just stop making the payments. I'm in DC. They'll never know. Fast forward, I graduate, I still have the Honda Accord, I started Emory. Every time I pull into the parking deck, I see a Mercedes, I see a 2017 Jeep, I see a Jaguar. So of course, naturally, just like in college, I wanted to get a new car. So I go into the dealership and they say, well, the first thing we have to do is pull their credit score. Do you know what your credit score is? I'm not sure. Do you know what a good credit score is? I'm not sure. Okay, well, we're going to pull your credit score and we're going to tell you what you're eligible for. I'm on the line. Oh, I like that Camaro. I like that Jeep. They pull my credit score. You're actually only going to be able to get a Malibu at this point in time. And maybe when you get your credit score back up, you'll be able to purchase something that you actually want. I don't understand. What do you mean? Well, right now, ma'am, you're sitting at 571. The maximum credit score is an 800, I believe. Okay, so I was automatically disheartened. I didn't understand. So I reached out to my sister and she said, oh, there's a man named Joaquin and he does the Daily Bread radio show. You should definitely take a listen. He walks you through a lot of financial decisions and ways in which that you can make sure your credit score is right and smart decisions and ways to allocate your funds. Okay, so we started listening to the Daily Bread radio show. Joaquin goes on to tell us about different ways that you can finance certain vehicles or certain homes and just different ways in which you can increase your credit score. So I decided to reach out to Mr. Joaquin because I knew that he seemed like a helpful tool in order for me to obtain the car that I want. So Mr. Joaquin said that he would come up with me to the dealership after I had already been and was discouraged the first time. So we go back to the dealership and basically after the owner saw me again with company, he was kind of like a little bit shook, like, wow, she came back, but she bought somebody, so it's not going to be as easy as the first time. So basically they walked me through my deal and everything, and Mr. Joaquin starts to break everything down, starts to ask questions, which you always have to ask questions. Just don't take anything at face value. So the man across the counter who's trying to sell the car, the salesman, is kind of like, wow, he really knows his stuff. So Mr. Joaquin starts to break down the numbers. He gave me one number, Mr. Joaquin came up with a different number. So he goes back and he redoes his count and he's like, oh, you're right. And then he says, he wants to know more about Mr. Joaquin. What do you do? How do you know all these things? So, at the end of the day, I walked off the lot with a new car, brand new 2017 Malibu, which I know that without Mr. Joaquin probably wouldn't have happened. Now I'm at a new place in my life and I'm so happy to where I'm going. I'm so happy that I have a resource in the Daily Bread radio show and Mr. Joaquin to help me to continue to be able to save my funds and elevate my credit score. I'm happy that starting at my 571, I'm now at a 650 only 4 months later, and I know that my goal of 750 points will be obtained very soon. I'm definitely working on getting a new house or, making sure I'm able to make sure I'm in a position to finance multiple houses or homes. I'm happy about the Daily Bread radio show. I think it's so important as young people that we listen to resources like this so that we'll be able to compete with our counterparts. I think that you all should listen to the Daily Bread radio show. Tune in sometimes Thursday night, 8 to 9 p.m. Don't miss it.
This is the Daily Bread. This is the Daily Bread. This is the Daily Bread.